Imagine a world where the United States no longer belongs to NATO or the United Nations. No global influence, no strategic alliances, and an uncertain future for America and its allies. Sound impossible? Well, not according to some major political figures, including President Donald Trump and billionaire Elon Musk.
Which is headed by Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight.
On March 1st, Musk shocked social media when he agreed with a post on X calling for the US to leave NATO and the UN. But he is not alone. Several Republican lawmakers have also been pushing for withdrawal, arguing that US bears too much of financial burden. And this conversation has only intensified after Trump's explosive clash with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House on February 28. But here's the real question. Can the US president actually withdraw from the NATO? And if it happens, what would be the global consequences? NATO, the military alliance formed in 1949 to counter Soviet threats, had been a cornerstone of US foreign policy for decades. It currently consists of 31 member countries, and the US plays a major role in its operations. But Trump and other critics argue that the NATO is a great deal for Europe and a raw deal for America. In fact, Trump has repeatedly stated that he doesn't believe the US should automatically defend Europe in case of an attack. On the other hand, the United Nations, the world's biggest diplomatic body, relies heavily on the US for funding and leadership. In 2023 alone, the US contributed nearly $13 million to the UN, financing programs like the World Food Program. But what happens if the US decides to pull out? Legally speaking, withdrawing from the NATO isn't as easy as signing an executive order. A 2023 law requires any decision to leave NATO to be approved by 2/3 of the Senate or authorized through an act of Congress. But some legal experts say the law isn't airtight. Trump could try to bypass it, leading to a lengthy court battle. Even if he couldn't officially withdraw, he could still quite quit NATO by reducing US participation, withholding funding, or refusing to send troops. Leaving the UN, however, is more complicated. The UN Charter does not include a voluntary withdrawal clause, making it almost impossible for a country to simply walk away. In fact, only one nation, Indonesia, has ever left the UN, and they quietly rejoined a year later without any legal repercussions. So, what if Trump actually pulls the trigger on this? First, a US withdrawal from the NATO would send shockwaves through Europe. Without the Americans' protection, NATO countries would be left vulnerable, particularly to Russian aggression. Ukraine would also feel the immediate effects, as European nations might hesitate to continue supplying military aid without the US leading the way. Additionally, a US exit would mean losing access to strategic military bases across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. This would weaken America's global presence and give adversaries like China and Russia more influence. And what about the UN? If the US left, it would lose its permanent seat on the UN Security Council, meaning no more veto power over international decisions. Funding for humanitarian and global health programs would also take a major hit, affecting millions worldwide. More importantly, the absence of US leadership would give China more power within the UN, shifting the global balance. So, is the US actually going to leave NATO or the UN? Right now, it's all speculation. But the fact that powerful figures like Trump and Musk are even entertaining the idea is enough to raise serious concerns.